Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order for the real estate meeting for Monday, October 27, 2025, pursuant to Missouri Statute 610.021. It's called to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Henry,
Present.
Ms. Johnson,
Present.
Mr. Watson,
Present.
Dr. Berry,
Present.
Mr. Marston,
Present.
Mr. Heights.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I would like to have the approval of minutes. I need a motion approval of minutes for September 15, 2025, closed session minutes, please, of the real estate committee.
Let's see. Should we do the open session?
No,
Or do we approve the closed session ones now? Or I guess, okay.
that's from the 15th. Right.
Okay. I move to approve the open session minutes from our September 15th real estate committee meeting.
Second.
There's been a motion and second. Can I have a vote?
Ms. Henry,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Watson,
Yes.
Dr. Berry,
Yes.
Mr. Marston,
Yes.
Mr. Heights.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Now I need a motion for the closed session for September 15, 2025 real estate meeting. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Thank you. Next, we will have broker introduction. EXP Realty.
Yes, we're here, eXp Realty. My name is Shawnee Ward. I'm here with Pam Bell and also Dana West. We are part of eXp Realty. We are the ones that are listing the assets that you all have available that's coming up for sale in St. Louis, Missouri.
Hello, I'm Dana West. I'm the broker and excited to be here.
Mr. Ward, Ms. Bell, or Ms. West, could you give us all some information regarding the marketing plan that you've been working on?
Yes, we're working on a commercial real estate marketing plan here. Our objective is to effectively market the position of the assets that you all have with St. Louis Public School District properties, maximizing exposure to qualified buyers while ensuring transparency and also professional alignment with the with what you all are setting here at the board. We have our marketing plan is basically we're marketing the strategy is to each property. We're going to market it on our sites that we use with branding and also the campaign of reimagining St. Louis from a classroom to communities. Our strategic plan is basically to do digital signage, also online presence with portfolio website, also listing the properties too on LoopNet, CoStar, Trexis, and also the MLS too as well, Realtor.com. And so we're going to also do targeting marketing too as well with your traditional type of marketing too, which is in paperback newspapers, things of that nature, with some open houses that we will do with the assets that are available to be seen. We plan on also working with the board to get the pricing too down to a science, with some being appraised that we're not able to do with our CoStar that we're doing now with comps that we're pulling together too as well. We also plan on pulling on the public and also the community engagement with investors, with open houses like that, community information sessions to where they could come tour the assets too. Also partnering with the aldermen in the area too of any nonprofits that might be in place that may be interested in the properties too as well. We will also lean on our relationships with leading brokers, commercial brokers throughout the city, with research evaluations and all that too as well. So those are basically our plans to marketed these properties to make sure we have the best exposure. Also having a creative timeline of preparation with OMs, offering memorandums, and also having a time frame to where we're going to launch everything to where it'll be launched at one time, and also reporting to the board as often as we can to let them know the attention and attraction that we have had, and also the calls we have gotten, as well as to the people that are interested in the properties too.
Thank you. Did any other
The on-
committee member have any questions?
I haven't looked yet. Are the properties listed on EXP's website yet, and will they be?
Yes, they'll be listed on EXP website, which is local, but we also will have CoStar, LoopNet, which is also international. That just won't be to this region. That'll be all over the world, honestly, with CoStar, Moody, and also Trexis. So we're really pushing hard with getting the presence, getting in front of the faces of all the investors, nonprofits, and also brokers to also offer them up to their clients too as well.
So also, so we can just be very frank with the question that he asked, or is it listed yet? It is not. We are still working on price. We also still have several schools that we've not even laid our eyes on. So we're working through making sure that we can get into the rest of the schools. But yes, our plan is as quickly as possible to get those on the market. We have a first 5 set that we will be sending over listing agreements later on this week so that we can get those listed as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Not a,
I'm sorry, about how many properties approximately are we expecting to put on the listing within the next 2 months?
Well, we were given a list of 16 properties. We have 5 properties that were priority properties. And so we're just going to move as fast as we can get access. So if we can get all 16 properties listed within the next 2 months, they will be. And as Sean just stated before, we do have a couple that we believe we may need some appraisal help because there's just no real value that we can give just from our system due to the damage of some of the properties. So we'll be communicating that list. We have one now that we know for sure we're going to be giving a recommendation to have that appraised. And so our goal, though, is to have this done as quickly as possible.
Thank you. One more question. In terms of the priority list, was that developed by SLPS or was that developed by other partners with SLPS?
That was developed by SLPS. Those were the directions that we were given from SLPS.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
any more questions? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have Navigate presentation.
Good afternoon to Madam President, Dr. Collins Adams in her absence, and to members of the board, to Interim Superintendent Dr. Myra Berry, and to the leadership team of SLPS. Good afternoon. It is great to be here. We don't take it lightly. Myself personally, as I've gotten behind this podium, I am a proud alum of SLPS, and so this is both personal as well as professional to me. That said, my name is Chaz Jaquez, and I'm with Navigate Building Solutions, primary point of contact. Myself and my colleague, Ms. Amy Miller, are here. I believe she's provided some pass-outs of the presentation for this afternoon. We're not strangers to this board or this district. We are managing the Proposition S bond issue projects, $160 million that was voted upon by the public 2 or 3 years ago. And so we just wanted to give an update on status, on where we are and where we're going. Shout out to my friend and brother back there for being Johnny on the spot. Agenda, projected schedule is what we want to talk about first. Project scope summary, and then get to the budget summary. Proposition S, promises made and promises kept. And then the summer 2025 Prop S projects. So if you look at our schedule, if you will indulge me, just to refresh everyone's memory, or those that may not know, the projected schedule are in arrow arrays. From the top, from left to right, is the schedule in quarters or seasons, and then on the left-hand side, from the top to the bottom, is the actual Proposition S work, or work descriptions and activities. When you look at those blue arrows that delineate the work for each of the line items, there you might see some intentional gaps, or some gaps that are actually intentional, which means that work can only take place in a certain season, or a certain temperature, or a certain weather. And then lastly, the red column is marked as to where we are to date, which we consider to be fall 2025. So we've shown this schedule to this body before, and we're moving from left to right with the work. So to talk about scope, to remind everyone, Navigate has managed quite a few contractors who have different contracts with the district, including but not limited to whiteboard installations. 571 have been installed district-wide. Stair tread replacements have been done at 16 of the open schools, 68 open schools. Painting, 30 schools. Lighting upgrades were done at 8 schools. Fire alarm upgrades at 6 schools, and this is not including what the district is doing themselves with the operations and facilities teams that we're working with under Chief Watson and his team. Exterior door replacements, there's been 100 door openings district-wide that have been replaced. Restroom upgrades, 45 different restrooms, ganged restrooms, whether boys or girls, district-wide. Playgrounds, 6 have new playgrounds or playground equipment. 10 have had resurfaced, 10 of the surfaces have been resurfaced, and 84 benches have been replaced. Flooring repairs, VCT, which is vinyl composition tile, 18 schools have received those. CPT is carpet, 19 schools received those. And then hardwood refinishing, whether hallway or classroom, 12 schools. Roofing, replacement, and restoration have been done at 15 schools, and then masonry, tuck pointing, and restoration have been done at 6 schools. So this is a snapshot of some of the work we have done to date with this district. Now on to budget. There were seven different buckets or categories that the district presented to the public that captures the work or crystallizes the work in these 7 categories under Proposition S. You all can read, I can read them for you if you like, but all the way from hazardous material and abatement disposal, all the way through to outdoor learning spaces. The cost for each of these buckets are reflective of the categories that were promised to the public given this district. And so not including professional services. Professional services is architect firms, engineering firms, so on and so forth. Not including those firms, we have touched north of $137 million to date. So that's just a quick and dirty way to crystallize that schedule and the work that I presented a minute ago in summarizing is what this captures. If we were to place this in a graph form or a pie chart, those 7 categories, from hazardous waste to building infrastructure to academic performance improvements, outdoor learning spaces, HVAC upgrades, safety and security improvements, and interior building enhancements, we took the cost along with those activities and captured it in a graph, a pie chart. So you can hopefully see those colors. You can see exactly what the percentages are and how we are distributing the cost and the dollars. So to pick out of the 7 categories, we wanted to pick and showcase the hazardous materials abatement and disposal. The district has worked with Mr. Faust and his team for many, many years. I've personally worked for with Mr. Faust in my former life, and so he does a very, very good job, him and his team, in capturing all of the hazardous materials that we know of to date and that's been tested, including lead removal and lead abatement, the duct cleaning in the respective schools, restoration renovations, restroom renovations, as well as whiteboard installations. Most folks don't know that the old blackboards have those hockey pucks behind them. Those are actually hazardous. So we have to abate those as we remove it and then install the new whiteboards and new things on the walls. So these are just a few pictures and photos that show some of the work that's taking place under hazardous materials. Now on to the projects that are have currently started or will start. We actually just completed auditorium upgrades in 3 high schools, Metro, Vashon, and Central VPA. We worked with each principal, and we worked with Mr. Benner at Central VPA, along with the general contractor and our friends at Cordigan Clark, which I see Mr. Raskins here, to do some performance technology upgrades, sound, lighting, audio, visual, even seating. And all 3 principals, from what we're being told and what we know of to date, are happy as a clam with the upgrades that we've done. So this showcases some of the academic end of the spectrum. The job that's in progress is Gateway STEM, the athletic building. We're looking to do some e-sport classroom, have a new e-sport classroom, which you see a picture at the top right. Gymnasium upgrades, picture is kind of in the center. And then the north elevator tower and exterior improvements, which is the last picture. We're putting in a actual full service elevator to span all floors in that field house. So we're currently underway. We're on schedule and on budget to date. Lastly, we are looking to do some premise identification changes in the district. As everyone know, we just had the anniversary of the incident that happened 3 years ago at Central VPA Collegiate, and we, along with Mr. Watson and his team, have decided, like some school districts, to go in front of the legislation because legislation coming down the pike will make changes to the premise identifications in schools for first responders. So for obvious reasons, we selected CVPA, CSMB to be the pilot for the district to make these changes, which includes, but it's not limited to, corridor premise identifications, directional premise identifications, room and area identifications, ADA signage replacements, egress room side of the door, ingress corridor side of the door, windows and exterior doors as well. So we're looking to possibly start that and complete it before the end of this current school year. That concludes our snapshot update. We'll now extend the floor for any Q&A.
Any questions for Navigate? Well, I would like to thank you for all the work you've doing, and we know that the storm did a lot of damage. Did that give you guys any hiccups while you was doing the primary work that you had to do in some of the schools?
Yeah, that's a great question. We had experienced some impact. Fortunately, most of the work was already completed and in punch list mode at the schools. There are a few things that we're working with facilities and operations once those buildings are safe to enter. So, but for the most part, globally, we did dodge a bullet, but there was a few minor blips and bumps that we experienced.
Okay. Hi, thank you. I do have a quick question. I know you mentioned we're close to over $137 million. Are we currently on budget for all these projects?
Yes, ma'am, we are.
Right. Do you expect us to come under budget?
Actually, we have some dollars that were allocated and approved by the board that we did not use. So it does go back to that proposition bond. So one can look at that to say that we do have some funds left.
Thank you.
Yep, great question.
And I know you mentioned in your one slide about the interior signage, which I believe is very important, especially if we're going to use a fire drill as opposed to something else. People know which direction they need to go to get out and where they need to go when they leave the building to certain spots. I know we're doing it at CPA, but are we in the market or to do it at other schools also?
So, yes, is the short answer. We are looking to talk with, meet with the fire chief and SLMPD, starting with Central, but we're hoping that will extend a runway to the other remaining open schools. So, absolutely, we're looking to make sure that happens.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I have two questions. First question, can you give us a little bit more information about the outdoor learning space enhancement? What does that include?
Essentially, those are the playground areas that we mentioned about resurfacing and new equipment, so on and so forth.
Okay. And the second question, I just lost my train of thought, but it was when you talk about the signage, when I'm looking at, and maybe this is from my memory, it's only directed right now at one school, or does it cover at least 10 schools in terms of update of the signage?
Well, currently the board has only approved Central VPA, and we were kind of using Central VPA Collegiate as a basis of design for the school district. The directional signage, the things that Board Member Hikes just mentioned, we are looking to use that as a springboard for the rest of the district, elementary schools, middle schools, and the remaining high schools. So we do plan to do more signage at the other schools. We just wanted to start for significant reasons at Central.
Okay. And is that included, the other schools, in the budget?
There are monies left in Proposition S that we have allocated and forecasted in the budget for those schools, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions for Navigate? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Next, we should have Landmark Association Real Estate Repurposing and Redevelopment.
Oh, wait, there it is. Only a few choices. Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Andrew Weil. I'm the director of the Landmarks Association. We're a nonprofit organization that was founded in 1958 to be an advocate for the historic architecture of St. Louis. We also, the school buildings have been a huge priority of our organization for nearly 70 years now. We've done a number of things to try to facilitate redevelopment of schools through the years. I think the most important thing that we've done is created the National Register framework, the large multiple property document nominating form for the public schools of William B. Ittner, which has facilitated, I'm not even sure how many redevelopments of schools using historic rehabilitation tax credits. I personally have listed, I believe it's 8. It's definitely 8. There may be more schools in the National Register of Historic Places as parts of redevelopment efforts. I've been through every currently closed school at one time or another. I also, I've taught historic preservation in the graduate architecture program at Washington University for about a decade. And I've seen, had the pleasure of celebrating many repurposed schools through our organization's what's called the Most Enhanced Awards, which is recognition for excellence in historic rehabilitation in St. Louis. So I'm here to read sort of a prepared statement, which is based on my experience of almost 20 years of trying to protect and see these buildings repurposed for the benefit of students in the district and the city at large. So thank you for giving me a moment here. So obviously St. Louis has a large number of historic school buildings that are no longer needed by the SLPS. I'm not here to dispute that. These buildings are architectural treasures and important components of our community's cultural identity. When sold, repurposed, and occupied, these buildings are enormous assets that contribute to the vitality of our city. When left vacant for even a brief period, they swiftly become major economic quality of life liabilities for the St. Louis Public Schools, for neighbors and neighborhoods, and for the city as a whole. Unfortunately, the SLPS has a long history of decommissioning and mothballing and marketing closed properties for redevelopment during and after periods of vacancy and deterioration. Experience has unequivocally shown that schools that have not sold quickly for redevelopment have universally languished and ultimately suffered severe damage at the hands of vandals and thieves. There comes a point where the cost of rehabilitating a vandalized school building becomes too great to be feasible given current and foreseeable market conditions. This is the case even with substantial incentives like historic rehabilitation tax credits, for which, incidentally, the vast majority of schools are or could be eligible. I'm here to humbly request that the SLPS cannot continue to repeat this process. Currently, there are 19 schools listed for sale on the SLPS's website. If I heard the earlier presentation correct, that's about to become 16 more. Of those 19 that are listed, 8 of them have been closed for more than 20 years. It's safe to say that all of the existing schools have deteriorated substantially since deactivation, while the cost of redevelopment has increased dramatically. The SLPS, the City of St. Louis, and city residents cannot afford for the next round of school closures to exacerbate what is already a dire, wasteful, and costly situation. The SLPS has a fiduciary responsibility to safeguard the value of the building assets, and a community responsibility to be a good neighbor. When schools are not sold quickly for redevelopment, the SLPS and taxpayers usually lose the real value of the buildings entirely. To compound the problem, neighborhoods are left dealing with massive vacant properties that drag down adjacent property values and degrade quality of life for residents. Vacant schools decrease redevelopment interest in surrounding neighborhoods and quickly become havens for illegal activity. Failure to redevelop schools cheats the city's tax base of potential sale value of the buildings, the potential taxable value of the redeveloped building, and undermines the taxable value of adjacent properties. Eventually, the SLPS is saddled with unsaleable buildings that have been torn apart by vandals and swamped with water damage. A solution is that SLPS needs to take decisive steps to divest unneeded buildings in a timely and responsible manner and preserve their economic and cultural value. And the way to do this, one way to do this, is to work with reputable developers that specialize in historic rehabilitation during the school closure planning process. It sounds like it may be too late for that, but you know, that's really the crux of what I'm here asking for. These historic developers constitute the primary market for vacant school buildings, like it or not. So the SLPS should work proactively with potential buyers to create arrangements and expedited sales, again, during the planning process. That way, interest in sales can be used to inform final decisions about which schools to close. SLPS should also factor the liability cost of not swiftly transferring properties to new capable owners into the calculus for sales prices. A cost-benefit analysis is needed that considers not only the dollars saved by closing schools, but also the economic impacts that large vacant schools have on the community and on the city's tax base, which of course supports the schools. In addition, the analysis needs to account for the costs incurred by SLPS for ongoing maintenance and insurance for unsaleable schools, the degradation and loss of real value as schools sit vacant, the anticipated costs of problem property litigation brought against SLPS by aggrieved neighbors, and the eventual cost of demolition. Such an analysis might indicate that the fiscally responsible course of action for the district would be to discount the sale price of a building as a way to avoid the higher cost of holding it for the long term. Indeed, it's entirely possible or even likely that the SLPS would ultimately save more money in the long term by effectively giving buildings away for redevelopment while it still can. Prioritizing schools with high redevelopment potential for closure would ensure that the SLPS and taxpayers recoup fair value realized in savings, sale price or savings, or both, and also mitigate the exposure of the district and the community to chronic problem property liabilities. The value obtained from selling strategically closed schools could then be reinvested in students, teachers, and improvements in schools that remain in operation. Such an approach would not only benefit school buildings and neighborhoods where redevelopment is currently possible, it would also benefit neighborhoods and school buildings where redevelopment is currently not forthcoming. If schools are strategically closed in a way that is informed, at least in part, by redevelopment interest, neighborhoods that are in the process of revitalizing would avoid the scourge of major vacant buildings in their midst. Likewise, neighborhoods where there is currently no redevelopment interest would benefit by retaining operational schools that act as anchors of community life. In both scenarios, fewer schools would go vacant and the negative impacts to the community would be somewhat mitigated. Failure to capitalize on saleable schools leaves much needed money for students on the table. Likewise, closing schools with no short-term redevelopment potential, dooming them to destruction by vandals and ultimate demolition, amounts to doubling down on decades of inequitable policies that have resulted in large-scale abandonment and disinvestment in wide swaths of our community. In summary, I urge SLPS to proactively assess redevelopment interest in all schools that are being considered for closure, incorporate redevelopment potential and interest in its decision-making process for determining which schools to close, and to consider terms of sale that recognize that the alternative to a sale is an open-ended community and district liability. I implore the SLPS to quickly sell buildings that can be redeveloped so that it can invest proceeds and savings in maintaining operational schools as neighborhood anchors where they would otherwise go vacant. Embracing these approaches will maximize the intended fiscal benefit of closures for the SLPS while minimizing the adverse effects of vacancy on St. Louis neighborhoods. Now, thank you for hearing all of that. I did submit a slide presentation. I don't know if that made it into the mix, but I did have some slides of the types of conditions that show up very, very quickly when these schools go vacant, and demonstrating not only those types of conditions and how expensive they are to mitigate and how exponential the curve is in terms of the cost of rehabilitating one of these buildings after the copper has been stolen and the water has gotten in, as opposed to, you know, looking at buildings that developers are actually interested in, prioritizing those for closure so that there is no period of vacancy and the schools realize the greatest value for those properties. So I guess my presentation, I know Ms. Henry said she had it. I don't know if it's in the mix or not.
It's attached to the agenda.
Oh, okay. So can I advance these slides then? Oh, cool. So this is one of the schools. This is Baden. This is one of the schools, most recent school that I nominated, historic photo of it. This was it in 2021 when I started working on the nomination. And this is a school that I believe finally the sale is in process, or maybe it's finished at this time. But 2021, these are the sorts of conditions that we had in this building. So now that it's been sold and development hasn't even started yet, you know that these are substantially worse. From the outside, it looks okay. From the inside, the water damage is the biggest issue. And this is really pretty much par for the course. I probably don't have to tell you, you've probably been through all of the buildings as well. But these are the kinds of situations we encounter with the green roof and the green floor. But there are some bright spots. I mean, this is Lafayette School when it was for sale. Conditions weren't quite as bad. It had a shorter period of vacancy, but still deteriorating conditions, vandalized conditions, a lot of water damage, the primary concern from my perspective. And this is sort of a bright spot here where the same view after rehabilitation. I do not know why this does not want to sit on an actual slide. But this is the entrance to Lafayette School after rehabilitation, some of the corridors, and some of the housing units. These schools are incredibly, they're really, really well suited to housing. And there are developers that would snatch these things up. But if they turn into these unworkable situations, they're just going to sit there forever and drag the neighborhoods and the city and the school district down with them. Sherman School is another success story. Conditions not so bad at the outset, but again, water was a big issue, and here we have them redeveloped and paying taxes. Gratiot was an interesting one as well, short period of vacancy relatively, one of the earlier remaining schools in the district that I nominated. You know it as this building with the wings. Decent conditions and a successful rehabilitation. So a few of the things in speaking with developers, and I don't want to give the impression that I'm here on behalf of developers. I'm not. I'm here because I've seen this process play out for 20 years, and because I'm a city resident, and because I'm a neighbor to an active St. Louis Public Schools and has been for 21 years. I want to see these buildings not go vacant. I want to see them thrive. I want to see the public school system thrive and get the maximum value from these buildings, because I have seen too many times where a building, rather than thinking about which building could be sold for a fair price and churning that money back into the students and back into the open schools, instead no consideration is given to which schools would be purchased right away for a fair price and not go vacant. I feel like if that would happen during the planning process, then a lot of these problems could be avoided, and a lot more schools that would not go vacant, they would be redeveloped right out of the gate without an extended period of vacancy. And then decisions also would benefit the schools that you say, well, this one's not going to get redeveloped. This one's going to sit vacant, get vandalized, destroyed. We're never going to realize any value out of it. It's going to drag its neighborhood down if we close it. But instead, those buildings that have no redevelopment interest could be prioritized for remaining open, so that they can stay in the community, continue to support the community. So these are some of the suggestions that came down. But some of the developers I spoke to, again, simply because they're the primary market for these buildings, I included in a letter. I don't have to read them right now, but they were included in an attachment that I sent to everybody. And one of the things that people talked about was about the timelines, because these buildings are redeveloped using incentives like LIHTC, like historic rehabilitation tax credits together. And a lot of people said that SLPS should increase its time frame for for finishing work from 3 years to 4 years, and extend buyback provisions for deals that are using HTC and LIHTC, because those programs have very long timelines that don't even work with each other, let alone work with the sales process for the SLPS. So some flexibility there. And then also, because the historic tax credits are so critical to the redevelopment of these schools, I don't know of any of the schools that have been redeveloped without historic tax credits. And having nominated 8 of them, I know that the integrity of the interior of the schools is absolutely critical to their eligibility for the National Register. When these buildings sit vacant, even for a brief period of time, especially now when copper is at an all-time high, even a matter of weeks or a matter of months, that copper gets stolen, the water gets into the building, the interior finishes start to degrade, and eventually those tax credits are going to go away, which means those buildings are not going to get sold and they're not going to be redeveloped. So keeping water out of these buildings, especially during this sales process, but I even suggested to go so far as to consider removing the copper from the roofs and the gutter systems and replacing it with a material that's not going to be stolen, as a proactive step to keeping water out of these buildings. Because if you don't do that, the tax credit availability is going to evaporate with the integrity of the interior, and you're never going to get, the students are never going to get anything from these buildings, and they're going to be huge value anchors and problem properties for neighborhoods and residents citywide. So that's it in a very large nutshell. I thank you for the time. I'm happy to address any questions.
Thank you, sir. Do anybody have any questions?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
First question, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Could you please repeat who you're representing? I didn't get that.
Yes, ma'am. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit organization called the Landmarks Association of St. Louis. And we have done the vast majority of the National Register nominations for the buildings to help qualify them for the tax credits, which are so critical to seeing them repurposed.
Okay, thank you. You did mention, I want to make sure I'm understanding. You said that maybe we should start to determine the closures of our schools based on redevelopment options. Can you please expound on that? Did I get that correct?
Yes, you did. And so the point is that if you don't make smart decisions, if the ultimate goal is to get as much value from the buildings that you're closing so that you can reinvest that value in students and in buildings that you're not closing, then it makes sense to ask developers which buildings they would purchase right out of the gate and consider not, build your entire closure program on those responses, but take them into consideration. Because if you've got developers lined up and you decide, okay, we've got somebody that wants to buy this school, we're going to close this school, then you're in a position, you're negotiating from a position of strength and you can get a fair price for that building. The alternative is that these buildings sit vacant even for a brief period of time, and the window to actually sell them or get any kind of value from them closes. And that's just the reality. I know some people may hold their nose at the idea of asking developers which buildings they would want and factoring that into closure. But if you want these buildings, if you want to get the money out of these buildings, the taxpayers' money, the residents of the city, get that money out of those buildings, you've got to consider the market and consider what the market is asking for before closing them, rather than just closing them in the dark. And the other thing is, closing schools with high redevelopment potential makes sure that increases the chances that you're going to realize some benefit from it. But closing schools with no redevelopment potential, you can pretty much guarantee those are going to get vandalized, and there's never going to be any value realized from them. They're just going to be hulks that are drags on their neighborhoods, and that eventually SLPS is going to have to tear down. They're going to be on the hook for it. So they're huge liabilities.
So are you saying that the only criteria we should be using in terms of determining what schools should be closure is what developer is willing to come in and buy the building as is? Should we be looking at things like affordable housing, transit housing? You showed some really good pictures here of apartment building, apartments that have been, schools that have been converted to apartments. Are any of those apartments, or what percentage are those apartments located on the north side? North City? What percentage are available for low-income housing or transit use?
Right.
When I'm looking at those pictures, I'm seeing really, really nice apartments that a developer has come in, brought our buildings for cheap, right? And then increased the value based on, the area.
Correct.
So can you expound upon that? Are we
Yeah.
looking only at the criteria?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm saying it's an important criteria that should be examined, because that's the way you're going to get money out of these buildings and be able to put that money into the SLPS and to put it into students and your mission. There are a number of Northside schools that have been redeveloped, and LIHTC is an important part of those redevelopments. The number of units, I can't say. I'm not a developer. I'm a historian. But I do know that LIHTC is an important part of the formula, and also one of the things that developers suggested was that maybe SLPS could offer a discount for sales for developments that would likely add to enrollment. So developments that are using LIHTC that are targeted toward families with students. It's just ideas that people are throwing out there to try to figure some of this out.
Two more questions, and then I'll
Certainly.
pass to my team. When you talk about your data, where are you getting your facts from? What
Which data?
sources? Well, you're saying you're talking to developers and about the cost, what it will cost to redevelop or close schools. I'm just interested in your traceability of your data. Where are you getting that data from? What sources?
Well, I haven't presented any data other than anecdotal data and my experience. There's no data. There's just the fact that I've been in these schools and I've seen the condition, and I know a thing or two about development. And when you've got feet of water in the basement of a building and a totally compromised roof, it's not a huge leap to understand that the cost of rehabilitating that building increases exponentially with that sort of deterioration. Other than that, if you have specific data questions, I'm not aware that I've presented any data today.
I'm just making sure that myself, the board, and the public understands that what you're presenting was your anecdotal, I'm going to say your opinion,
This is my professional opinion,
Okay.
as someone that's been around this problem for 20 years.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you on that. And then my last question, you talked about reputable developers.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you working with any
No,
through
ma'am.
your executive foundation?
Nope.
Do you have any suggestions based on what you would consider a reputable developer? What criteria would you use to, quote, state that they're reputable? So maybe we can have some of that information for you.
Well, where I started, and in fact, the only developers I spoke to about this in an effort to gather information for my anecdotal presentation, were people that have successfully redeveloped St. Louis Public Schools. Those are the only people that have weighed in on this analysis.
Could you name who those were?
Yeah, sure. It's public record. The people that redeveloped Wilkinson School was Advantis Redevelopment. Gratiot School was Garcia Development. I'm trying to remember. I know Duffy Nurnberger redeveloped a school years ago. Which other ones did I talk to? Stephen Levin, who redeveloped Clark School. Right now it's escaping me, but I'm happy to send you the list of people that I spoke to. But you would, I mean, the SLPS in theory has a list of the people they've sold the schools to and knows which ones have been redeveloped. So my experience, I talked to everybody that I knew of that had successfully redeveloped a St. Louis public school, and they're people that have bought the schools from you all.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Landmarks Association for all the work they've done over the years preserving historic architecture in the city. And just wanted to underline a couple of points that I think are really important. One is that before a school closes, there should be a plan in place for what's going to happen to the building. In the past, we've closed schools and said either we'll figure it out later or we'll just sort of hang on to it for a while and maybe we'll use it again later. And what ends up happening in a lot of cases is that the building sits vacant for decades and loses almost all of its value. So part of the criteria for closing a school should be its market value, the market value of the building, and whether there's interest from developers in repurposing the building. Also, it's critical to keep water out. Water is one of the fastest ways to mess up a building, water and fire. So anything we can do to, keep the rain out and keep, pipes from bursting is important.
Any more questions for Landmark? No?
May I speak to his comments really quickly?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sure. Yes, sir.
Well, I just wanted to agree, and losing the value it goes beyond that, in that there are buildings that I spoke with developers about, not specific building, but a category of building, that I don't think the SLPS could even give away at this point. So there's a point where it becomes something of value to something that actually has negative value, not only in terms of real value, but in terms of the impact that it has on the surrounding neighborhood and therefore on the tax base that supports the SLPS. And then the other point is the reason you're saying, working to try to figure out a solution before the buildings are closed. I think that's absolutely imperative, because the damage when the valleys and the gutters and the roof ridges and the cupolas and these beautiful copper work that we have on these historic buildings, they disappear overnight, and then the water starts pouring in and you're off to the races with the kind of damage that makes a building undevelopable and unsaleable. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Thank you for your presentation.
I have one, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
While I do agree that we do need a plan in place before we close buildings, I just wanted to highlight that we have a harder time being equitable and transparent when we engage developers before sale. So I just wanted to highlight that. Developers are going to want to talk about pricing and things like that when we engage them, and that's not fair to our stakeholders and our constituents. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Sure. Why isn't that fair?
Because everything should be public record, and we don't have a way right now to make that public record. So that's a fine line when it comes to equity and transparency.
Could there be an RFP from the SLPS that said we're considering a large round of closures, public RFP, please come and tell us which schools you might be interested in redeveloping? Would that be transparent enough?
That's something the committee could discuss.
Wonderful, thank you.
Any more? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, really appreciate it.
And I am sorry, I moved ahead. Please forgive me for that. We'll have Marshall School Sale. And also Cleveland School Sale.
Now is it on? Okay, great, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Rob Orr. I'm the Senior Vice President for Real Estate Development at St. Louis Development Corporation. We are here today representing one of our many agencies at SLDC, which is the Land Clearance for Redevelopment Authority. And I actually appreciate you going out of order on your agenda because Mr. Wiles' comments were, I think, very informative and very much true, at least with respect to the two properties that we are here to discuss this afternoon. With me is an associate of mine at SLDC. I'll let him introduce himself.
Thank you. Peter Phillips, VP of Land Assemblage and Redevelopment at SLDC, also, again, representing Land Clearance Redevelopment Authority. Yes, so again, my role at SLDC is largely kind of the project management related to some of the real estate ventures, you know, like in the some of the pre-development activities, whether it be stabilization, environmental assessment, remediation, and you know, demolition, grading, et cetera. Some of the actual real estate enhancements, et cetera, on the actual properties. So, if we were to move forward with acquisitions, I would be kind of managing some of the actual, you know, project management enhancements of some of these properties.
So our Executive Director and CEO, Otis Williams, may be joining virtually. I don't know if he's able to comment. If he is virtual, he is out of town at a meeting, so I don't know if he'll be able to answer any of your questions as well. But we appreciate you getting this on the agenda right away. We just did submit this offer late last week. We have been in conversations with SLPS over the past few years about both of these projects. In fact, we had an option agreement executed in, I believe, June of '24 for Marshall School. Because of our funding source, there were a couple of things that weren't quite properly accounted for in that agreement, and then it went out of contract, and we did not ever execute an agreement on the Cleveland High School, although we were very close on those terms. Since that time, another year, over a year has passed. Significant additional deterioration has occurred in both of these schools. Marshall was impacted by the tornado. There is debris on the lot. As many of you may know, there are two very large holes in the roof. There are many of the upper level windows that are open. We would like to purchase this property. We have submitted an offer, and all of you should have a copy of that. We may have an extra one or two if you don't. We are looking to expend ARPA funds that were allocated to SLDC by the Board of Aldermen for land assemblage and redevelopment. LCRA's goal is to remove blight and to return properties into productive use, which is in the best interest of not only all of the citizens, but certainly in those neighborhoods that are impacted by the vacancy and the vandalism and fires that often occur in these long vacant properties. Marshall School, as you know, has been vacant for 22 years. It is in a challenging neighborhood. Dr. Martin Luther King Drive is a priority focus area of SLDC. We have a number of initiatives that we're undertaking along this corridor, but all of them are challenging. And this one certainly is one of the important ones that we would like to see be a catalyst for redevelopment of this area and to help with the other projects that we have as well and start to see some synergy created around this long vacant property. Our funding source requires us to move very quickly. So if we do not close on this acquisition by the end of the year, we will not be able to move forward with it. And the same is true of Cleveland High School. In order to acquire the property, after acquiring the property, in order to do what we need to do in the time frame that we have, our funds expire at the end of next year. So we have to get under contract with architects or engineers, and contractors go out for bid to do any of the work that we are going to do, which all has to be publicly bid. Our goal is to acquire the property and then to immediately work to weatherproof the property. That means fix the holes in the roof, at least to the point where they will not leak for a couple of years while we seek redevelopers, which will hopefully happen quickly, but it may not. That includes windows as well. That includes any physical damage to the building that would be at risk of falling, any of the walls or any of the structures that could be at risk. As Mr. Weil mentioned, and we all know this, water can do incredibly damaging things to these buildings, and the holes in these roofs have been exposed for many years. I've explained to you a number of the challenges in the offer letter that we have. The nice thing is that because it is on the National Register, it can be eligible for historic tax credits, but that also means that the reuse and the redevelopment of that property is subject to guidelines established by the National Park Service and the State Historic Preservation Office. So these properties aren't easy to redevelop, even if you are able to acquire them at a reasonable price and to have a plan going forward to do the stabilization. Redevelopment is not certain on either one of these two properties, but we want to do everything we can to give it another 3 to 5 years life for that opportunity to maybe occur. And beyond that, we don't think that there will be a chance to save these two buildings. If it doesn't happen soon, then it's not likely going to happen. So with that, on the Marshall School, we are prepared to offer $200,000 to purchase the property. We would like to close by the end of this year. This offer is subject to further approvals through our process, given the funding source, including the LCRA board, which will hear this resolution regarding this offer tomorrow afternoon at its meeting. It does require approval by the Community Development Administration, which has fiscal responsibility for the funds that we have. It includes contingent upon satisfactory findings of a Phase 1 environmental assessment. We have not been in the building to determine what environmental conditions need to be abated. Typically, you'll see lead and asbestos as being two of the main concerns there, and also satisfactory findings of a title report. We assume that SLPS has owned this for a long time, and that should not be a challenge. So with that, I will entertain any questions, unless Peter has any additional comments on the Marshall School agenda item.
Anyone have any questions? Go ahead.
Just so I'm clear, what is the funding source that expires in December 2026? Is that the ARPA funds?
It is, yes,
Okay.
ARPA funds.
And then if it unfortunately does come to the point where demolition is necessary, just like any idea where the money for that would come from?
I do not, which is a great risk that we are taking. We will probably demolish the standalone one-story building that was built many years later. That's just from a, street level perspective. One of the things that I did share with you, and I forgot to mention it, is that The Federal Environmental Protection Agency has a department that actually helps communities look at challenging properties that may have environmental contamination that make it difficult to repurpose, things like lead and asbestos and other groundwater contamination and other issues. And so their technical advisory committee did provide consultants to us a couple of years ago that did a complete analysis of the condition of the building. And if you read what they came up with, I think they have a really great redevelopment proposal. It includes, I forget exactly, 20-some apartment units, including three-bedroom units, which is always nice to see, especially in affordable housing locations. It includes new construction fronting along MLK. LRA does own a number of parcels also within the same city block that will give us now some opportunity to co-market that and maybe have a better development and a bigger development happen. And we are seeking to acquire the only privately owned parcel on that city block. So we think this one is really teed up well for potential redevelopment. Again, it's still in a neighborhood and a part of our city that has not seen a lot of redevelopment. And now with, the unfortunate disaster that we had earlier this year, that's going to be, continuing to be a challenge. But we're willing to make that risk, but we're hopeful that the school board will agree with us that if we don't do this now and if we can't move quickly on it, that unfortunately we're going to have to step aside and see, what happens from someone else.
Hi, I got a couple questions. Are we talking about both Marshall and Cleveland? Can I ask both questions?
I was just starting with Marshall. I kind of alluded to both of them because they're very similar, but I'll get to Cleveland next. I'll leave it to the chairman to tell me how to proceed.
Okay, go ahead. You can go ahead with Cleveland, sir.
Okay. All right. Wow, Cleveland, what a beautiful school. We toured it a few weeks ago, having understood that there had been yet another fire within the last few months. This one occurred in the auditorium. It literally took us 15 or 20 minutes to even get to the auditorium from the newer gymnasium that was built in the early 90s. If you have not been in Cleveland, many of the hallways are impassable. The stairwells are impassable. The plaster has fallen. Insulation has fallen, and there's concrete has fallen. And so it is very difficult to navigate our way through that building, but we did finally make it to the auditorium, and we were able to observe where a fire occurred. I'm not sure of what the origin of that fire was. And you could also see from the flames that extended up into the ceiling of the auditorium, which really is a unique gem in this building, and at the same time also a challenge. Again, Cleveland High School is on the National Register. Redevelopment of this school will be difficult. It will take every incentive available to make it happen, and we're not sure that even that we'll be able to get there. But due to having our ARPA funds, we would like to give it another 3 to 5 years life and see if we can bring redevelopment to this majestic building. Again, the same kinds of concerns that we have with Marshall. The risk of not only not being able to finance the project, regardless of how great it might be, what can happen with the site due to the National Register designation. We also understand that the track and field, which has easier redevelopment potential, obviously, because it's a vacant ground, but it is also a contributing part of the National Register designation. So what happens on that track and field may be restricted by the State Historic Preservation Office. And I will say with Cleveland, similar to Marshall, this is subject to further approvals by the LCRA board, which we'll hear this tomorrow, subject to approval by CDA in our environmental findings. This one would also be contingent, which I did not list on here, but I should have, contingent on us being able to redevelop the vacant track and field out front. No developer is going to take this school on without being able to develop that vacant ground, which should support and supplement the development that occurs within the school. And I think it's important, there's different ways of handling this. We also had a different EPA technical advisory team that did a study on Cleveland High School. We're not quite as thrilled with the report as we were with the Marshall in terms of its redevelopment. It was a different consulting firm, but it did point out a number of things that are very challenging about the school, including the displacement of the floor plates, that you can't enter any of the doors in the Cleveland High School and be at a level without having to go up or down stairs to get to a floor where the development occurs. So you need elevators, you need chair lifts. It's going to be very difficult for a developer. And then coupled with that, you have the auditorium, which is maybe the coolest part of the whole building. It's going to be very challenging because the State Historic Preservation Office may not allow us to utilize that space to create the density that's needed in order to make the economics work. So having to retain an auditorium that really is difficult to generate any revenues from that redevelopment is going to be very prohibitive and very challenging for a developer. So it's very important for us to move quickly and to understand what those challenges are. But quite frankly, if the track and field cannot be redeveloped as part of the school will not be redeveloped, as Mr. Weil pointed out, without historic tax credits. We know that's not going to happen. So if those two are tied together and someone wants to develop the school but they can't redo the track and field, we're not going to move forward on this because there's no economic and viable way for us to move forward on that. So that is an additional contingency. And we are prepared on the Cleveland High School to offer $300,000 for the 3 parcels, to include the school, the newer gymnasium built around 1990s, and the track and field. We would like to close by the end of this year as well. It's critical for us to move forward. One thing that we have already done, and we've had a number of meetings on both of these schools over the last couple of years, but very intense number of meetings over the last few months on Cleveland High School. Trivers, an associates architect firm, did a building assessment very early this year. I think they did an absolutely great job. You have all the photos. Mr. Weil shared some on some of the other schools. The ones in Cleveland High School are not unlike the ones that he shared, except I would say it's much worse. Like I said, you literally cannot walk around in much of the building. It's not safe. And there's so much debris and fallen materials on the floor that you just can't move around. So we are prepared to close by the end of this year if we can get through the due diligence items and move forward. We are prepared to spend up to $3 million to stabilize, weatherproof, and secure this building. There are break-ins nonstop in this building. Many of you are aware of that. There's a fence around the building that is not secure. People are getting in. They will get in. If it makes sense to demolish the gymnasium so that removes one of the points of entry and removes the attractive nuisance that it presents, we will do so. The 2 one-story buildings on the east side, Virginia side of the building, if it does not jeopardize our historic tax credits for the redevelopment of the school, we may also look at demolishing those sections of the building. Again, they aren't historically significant. Our purpose is in maintaining and stabilizing the main historic structure that was built in the early 1900s. That does include the gymnasium that was built along with the original structure and the auditorium. We'd like to see it repurposed in a way that makes economic sense, because without that, no developer is going to take this on and go into a project knowing that they're going to lose millions of dollars on. And there's no other way to redevelop the school, again, without all of the tax credits and incentives that the city can provide, and the state and the federal government through historic tax credits. So with that, I'm willing to answer any questions about Cleveland or Marshall School. And unless Peter has?
Go ahead, Mick.
Nothing really in particular, but just to recap, I just wanted to just kind of give an overall that I know this seems like it's a rush, but this is kind of these offers are a culmination of years of conversations and partnerships with, Chief, Watson and Director Henry, of conversations and like getting into these properties and looking at them and, like discussions and thinking about it and priorities of the community and SLDC of trying to figure out how we can save these properties that the community is interested in, like with the planning department at the city, of just like, these are important properties to the neighborhoods, and we have been looking at them for years. And we have had assistance from the EPA. We've had consultants in there looking at the structural integrity and what it will take to save these properties and to remove some of those financial barriers and the structural barriers to try and entice some of those developers to come in, to, you know, like to actually be intrigued and to try to take these properties on. And that is what we're trying to step into, to take on those barriers that are just making no one interested in these properties. And it's risky and it still may not work, but this is kind of our last, in our opinion, like the last chance that we believe that it's going to be for these properties for anyone to actually be interested. And so we're going to try to do what we can to do things like fix the roof, make them watertight, board them up, do exterior, you know, finishes, like tuck pointing, do some of the environmental remediation that's necessary, you know, things of that nature. All of those things that make them unappealing. And then we're going to try to find some developers and see if we can't get some bites. So that's I just wanted to make it, I know it seems real last minute, right? But it's been years of looking at this. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, that it's not just, you know, like, hey, we're here and throwing it at you real quick. So it is a little bit more than just the last couple of months.
Dr. Berry?
Yes, thank you. If you are able to find developers, are you able or even willing to put in the agreement with them that they must have or provide affordable housing? And then I see in the Cleveland, you talk about a green space, so putting in there that green space would be available?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of it. I think it sounded like the speaker
I
was
said if
cutting
you
out.
do are able to find a developer, are you able to put or willing to put in the contract with them that they must provide affordable housing?
Typically and Zach Wilson, the director of our incentives over there, can answer some of these questions, but typically, excuse me, when we provide tax abatement, there's always considerations about affordable housing. Sometimes it can be a part of a development, or it can be a contribution to affordable housing that may occur in a different development project. Certainly, if we do, development on the track and field itself, that would be the more likely place to want to put such a condition. To impose a condition of affordable housing in the school itself, which is already going to be tremendously challenging to redevelop from a financial perspective, bringing every incentive into play that's even possible, we still may not get there. So I'm not saying that we would certainly encourage that. We would certainly want that to happen at least on one of the adjacent properties as they get developed. Not necessarily in the school, but potentially in the school if that can happen as well. We do know there's been, some conversations about senior housing being a part of that redevelopment. So, we want to make a developer be successful, and to impose conditions going in advance and not knowing what those numbers look like. The numbers that we've seen from people who have looked at it so far make it very suspicious as to whether or not it can be redeveloped at all. But we're willing to take that risk. We're willing to try and give it another 3 to 5 year life to make that happen. But we will certainly consider that affordable housing as part of the overall development, whether it's in that actual building itself. And I'll let Zach speak to those.
Yeah, thank you. And while Zach's coming up, I hope we can do more than consider, especially since we're talking about our families, and we do know that the economic numbers of the staff around us and the students around us. So it would be very beneficial to our community if we could ensure that they will also be able to stay in the community, especially when we're looking at selling the buildings. So thank you.
Very much so. Most of the schools that we, as received incentives, receive LIHTC tax credits, which would be affordable housing for families and seniors. Baden School that was just shown earlier is a very great project that was sold to Lutheran Family Services. Is built around families, 3 to 4 bedroom apartments, which hopefully will be St. Louis Public Schools students. So another great one is in Old North, Lewis McKinney rehabbed a beautiful building, beautiful rehab with senior housing. So it really depends on. We would love affordable housing in Cleveland and Marshall. It just depends on the capital stack moving forward, and LIHTC helps close that gap. So it could be variable. Very likely it'll be affordable housing, just we can't commit to it right this second. So.
Hi, I have a couple questions. Thank you for your presentation. For Marshall, you've already indicated that you are anticipating a number of 27 rental units. And you're saying, and it says to describe intended use for the property. I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. You're going to try to preserve it, but if you cannot preserve it, then you will demolish, correct?
If we if it comes to be that the building has to be demolished, we will not be able to use our ARPA funding in order to do that. We will have to find another source of funds. Our funds have to be fully expended by the end of next year. So we are definitely not going to be demolishing that school before the end of next year. We are not going to spend money to try and give it another 3 to 5 years to make it economically viable for a developer to come in and make that happen and then to turn around and demolish it prior to the end of the year. So that's the risk we're taking, is that if we do acquire it, we do stabilize it, weatherproof it, that if it still may not make economic sense, but we're not going to demolish it, certainly not before 3 years, barring some other, significant event that would cause that to be necessary, to where the building would be so unsafe as to demolition being the only option. So our intention is not to demolish either one.
Okay, I understand that. I would hope you wouldn't demolish a building that you're using federal funds for, which is ARPA. So you said $3 million that you will be investing in a property, but you also stated, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're not sure if this property would be able to be saved. So help me understand, why would you put in additional funding if you're not using your ARPA funding? But why would you put in additional funding or take that high-level risk to buy a building, put in $3 million to stabilize the roof and everything, and you don't know if you're going to be able to utilize the building? Maybe I misunderstood.
That's, a developer risk. I mean, private developers are in the same condition, except they take a much longer lead time to make that decision. So a private developer that would look at this would start the same due diligence that we're doing, maybe undertake some of the same stabilization and weatherproofing activities that we're going to undertake. But we know, and we have talked to, between Shrivers and other developers, this building can be renovated. I'm talking about 2 different buildings here, for example. So Cleveland High School, we know that it can be renovated. We just don't know if it's economically viable to do so. The only opportunity that we're going to have to learn that is to take it to the next step and to actually give it an opportunity to use the funds that we have today to stabilize it and weatherproof it and get to that point. We will be out for an RFP while we're doing the stabilization work. So we may know by the end of next year whether or not a developer is in line, because we want to move as quickly as possible. We don't want to hold on to these buildings. So the Cleveland budget would be up to $3 million, and that's a moving target at this point. We're getting cost estimates. We're, like I said, we had the structural assessment, so we're aware of some of what needs to happen. We need to have conversations with the state SHPO office to understand what we will be allowed to do and what we will not be allowed to do that would potentially jeopardize any historic tax credits, because the project won't happen without historic tax credits. So there's a number of things that we have to do in order to get to an understanding of what that long-term potential is. But we know that physically the building could survive. It's whether or not it can be economically, which is why we're willing to take that chance. This is a historic property. It's important to the neighborhood. And we have people telling us that they want to see this building renovated and brought back onto productive use. And we're willing to take that risk and move forward with that endeavor.
Okay, one more question.
Sorry, just one more thing. Just a little bit more context too, is that these 2 properties, they are part of a larger initiative by SLDC, which we are trying to save. It is about the properties and the corridors. We have an initiative about saving historic and culturally significant properties with these funds around the entirety of the city, where we are trying to target the properties specifically and save them from decades of falling apart, that they're getting ready to be demolished by disrepair, right? And we believe that they have been identified as an important historic and cultural icons by the communities, and they want to be saved, and we have funding to do so right now. And if we don't use the funding right now, we don't see another alternative of funding sources to save them. And so we're trying to do so. And so I understand, does it make financial sense? If it did, we believe that a developer probably would have done so by now. So it probably doesn't from a pure financial point of view. So what we're trying to do, and what SLDC does, in general is to fill that gap, that financial gap of what makes sense for a developer, what is not financially feasible to make a development possible. We fill that gap so that it can make a development possible. So we take some of these, vacant and abandoned properties that otherwise will never be developed, and we try to take away those barriers so that they can be developed. So is it risky? Inherently, yes. Could it fail? Possibly. But it's about the property. It's about the corridors, and it's been a longstanding, it's been a longstanding priority, and we have the funding to do so, and I think that's kind of the answer. It's maybe not the best answer, but that is the answer.
Okay, 2 more questions, I'm sorry. My second to last question is when I'm looking at the Cleveland building, in your memo, you stated that you do have 3rd Ward Alderman Shane Cone endorsement.
Correct.
Yet, I don't see, when I'm looking at the back, when it says Alderman approval support letter included with offer, it says no. Can you make that available?
We could get one, yes. We've met with Alderman Cone many times. I think he's expressed his own personal interest in that. I did not get a letter from him, but we will get that for you.
Yeah, I think it'll be consistent with what you state in the memo versus the attachment document. And then going to Marshall, do you have any endorsement from the alderman in that area? And just for my clarification, what side of the city is this? Is this central? Is this North City? These two schools? Where
Well,
are they
Marshall
located?
School's on Dr. MLK Drive, and Cleveland High School is in Dutchtown, off of South Grand, Louisiana, Virginia.
One north, one south, okay. I'm sorry, I'm new to Missouri, so
No, that's
thank you
okay.
very much. So one is north side and one is south side.
Correct.
Okay, and so with the one Marshall, is that south or north? North,
Marshall's north.
north, okay. Well, Cleveland, south, do you have alderman endorsement for that one as well?
We have verbal endorsement from Alderman Cone. We do not have an endorsement letter from Alderwoman Tyus on the Marshall School. We've been focused on getting all of our due diligence done to get to this point, but we can get that letter. I mean, the alternative is that we don't move forward and, the building's going to sit there and not get developed.
We get the urgency. I really do. I just think for our community stakeholders, we want to make sure that they are involved and have at least acknowledgement and say of what is being proposed by SLDC in terms of in their community. So that's my only question is, making sure that the community does have involvement, at least knowledge of this proposal.
Okay, that's an excellent point, and I will say, I don't know if it says in here exactly, but the Marshall School report was completely generated with significant community involvement. I think there were over 20 or so. It was right before the work was done before I got involved with actually working to preserve this building. But this plan, this reuse plan, was created with a number of community partners involved, and I believe it mentions in here somewhere, but I'm not finding exactly what the page is, but it talked about who all was involved in that stakeholder group. It starts on, well, I can't see, starts on the page that says stakeholder engagement, and it goes into detail about the number of parties who were involved in helping create this plan. So this was not done without neighborhood involvement and stakeholder involvement.
Any more questions?
And again, good presentation. I do want to follow up in terms of with Chief Johnston, just in terms of getting the community support, letters from the community, from the alderpersons, to help us again with the efforts. As I was just looking at the numbers, and I hear again the sense of urgency. But just looking at the numbers in terms of Marshall and at 200,000, which equates to basically $4 a square foot, and then we're looking at the old Cleveland, which I think in terms of marketability, that area is definitely has been stable and a pillar. But the calculations show, just given the gross square footage of the building alone, at the $300,000 offer is around $1.28 a square foot, and that's not including the land. So I get the sense of urgency. My question is particularly around the old Cleveland. Is that a fair, marketable ask or offer?
We believe so because it comes with great risk. I mean, there's a chance that we won't be able to see the development occur. There's a risk of the SHPO and what they will allow to have happen to the building. And if you can't build density within the building itself, as Mr. Wiles pointed out earlier, you know, there comes a point when some buildings you can't give away. And I believe that Cleveland High School is that way today. The school, the vacant ground is the only thing that gives that property value, because the risk of what can happen in that building, we may save this building for 3 to 5 years and aren't able to make the economics work. And at some point, the building may either fall down or have to be demolished, and that's a risk, you know, that we're taking because we have funding right now to move forward with it. So, you know, as far as the actual per square foot price, we will not seek the redevelopment of Cleveland High School or the redevelopment of the vacant lot without someone redeveloping the school. So the school you can't give away. The land you could probably sell, and that might be able to give value, but if you separate the two of them, I don't think you'll see the school get redeveloped. So that's why it's important to do them both.
And then can I just the other thing I want to note about the offer price is it is very much backed into based on our budget of the funds that we have available of the ARPA funds and how much we have anticipated for those stabilization costs for the property based on the conditions assessment and how much we actually have available and what we think we need to put into the property and how much we have left over to actually offer to for the property. That is a very real constraint of how much money we have. And then the other side note that I want to make sure that is clear is that with LCRA, it is a public entity, and we will be taking no profit from this enterprise. Like, if we're a public enterprise, we're going to be seeking no profit. At the end of the day, we're likely going to be taking a loss on this property as well. So I just want to be clear that we're not expecting to see any gain from this at all. We still expect to see a loss, even from all of this. So I just wanted to make sure that when we calculated this, it is very real of the offer is basically just kind of what we had left in the budget. So just throwing it out there.
And I guess I'll just add that if there was another developer that was ready to step in and purchase either one of these properties, we'd be happy to let them move forward with it. We would help them in every way we possibly can, but short of there being another offer, this is what we can make today.
One more question. You said that you chose these schools or these sites based on a corridor. I think that's the title you used or stating. When you mean that, you mean like what is happening in the area of where these schools are located? So you wouldn't pick these schools if there was nothing else going on economically or development-wise in the area, correct?
No, I would say that these areas are both identified by the Economic Justice Action Plan as high priority areas in the community that need assistance above and beyond what the city is able to do just in the normal course of its doing business. SLDC has been focused on the MLK corridor for well over a decade, as long as I've been there, and there hasn't been a lot happen. And this is one of the opportunities we have that can hopefully move that forward, and we can see other development happen around it. We have invested in the former Killark Electric facility at 3900 MLK that we were hoping to also spur development. We are also invested in the Wellston Loop Station on the far west side of MLK. So we're trying to help spur and bring opportunity to this neighborhood and help create a market that doesn't exist today. if these areas were, if the development community were active, and if there were a lot of development activity happening in these areas, our work wouldn't be needed. Our goal is to step in and help remove blight because the market forces aren't taking care of that. Cleveland High School is in Dutchtown. It's, by the way, you do have a letter of support from, I believe, Nate Lindsay and the Dutchtown Main Street group in support of this sale that he sent independently, but we can get you a copy of that as well. The neighborhood is supportive of this. His letter actually says that if SLPS does not move forward with SLDC, that you should demolish the building immediately. We don't believe that it should be demolished immediately, which is why we're here today. But no, these are priority areas as identified by the city's Economic Justice Action Plan. And these are priority areas identified by SLDC in our priority project initiative that we released a couple of years ago that has 16 total properties that are specifically listed as priorities. One of those being the MLK corridor. Marshall School is individually listed also along that MLK corridor, as is the Wellston Station on the far west side.
I understand, and I drive both areas quite frequently, and I understand that both of them do need development. They both do need that in a bad way, but I'm just trying to, when you guys are going to be, you're going to put money into it, but then you're going to try to find a developer. You don't have a developer already, for lack of a better word, ready to develop these properties, correct?
That's correct. I will say that with Cleveland High School, I believe it was under contract more than 5 years ago. There were maybe subsequent to that going under contract, there was another developer who expressed interest. That developer had walked away because they weren't able to get the terms that they wanted. We have developers who are looking at it, as I mentioned earlier, Cleveland particularly for potentially senior housing. As we're doing the stabilization and the weatherproofing of these buildings, we will issue an RFP so that we can hopefully shorten that time period. Our agency does not want to hold these buildings. We need to get them in the hands of a developer who has the means to actually move them forward. But you're not going to find a developer out there today who's going to go out and spend $2 to $3 million to weatherproof the buildings and then try and figure out a development plan. We're trying to give that extended life of, like I said, 3 to 5 years, so that gives us more time to make the numbers work. Many of you know about, if you know about LIHTC, it can take 3 years before you get your application approved. The Baden School was one, I think, that went back multiple times before it was approved. So, yeah, it's a risk. We don't have a developer today, but we do think, and Marshall School, I will say that there has been interest expressed. I'm not going to release what those entities were because I don't want them to be on record as having expressed interest, but again, it's because nobody wants to do this pre-development work that we're willing to undertake at risk as to why you aren't receiving offers, on these properties.
And I might be getting ahead, putting the cart ahead of the horse, but would you guys need to come back for, if something were to transpire, which we hope, would you guys have to come back for tax abatement?
Again, I think, well, go ahead.
Yeah, we would deliver a packet to this committee with the terms of the tax abatement and incentives package if it went to the Board of Aldermen. So any incentive package that goes to the Board of Aldermen, this committee would see it.
Thank you. Any more questions? Go ahead.
You do have it listed in here, so you would come back for a request of tax abatement for both of these properties. I just want to make sure.
Assuming that's what the developer wants, but like we said, most likely they're going to want that. Developers are going to need every tool in the tool book in order to make these properties work. And so tax abatement is likely one that they may come back for. They may submit an application for tax increment financing. Either way, it's coming back to the SLPS board to weigh in on any incentive.
TIF would not come from this board, but you have 2 representatives from the school board on the TIF commission, and that you guys would vote through that method. Some developers do not want to pursue tax abatement because some of the requirements, the minority compliance, prevailing wage, so we can't guarantee if they will be seeking tax abatement, but if they do, and it goes through the Board of Aldermen, this committee would vote on it.
Okay, one last question, I'm sorry, I know I'm asking a lot of questions. Just for my clarity, you stated, sir, that you guys are not getting any profit from this. What is your role then? Maybe I don't understand what your role is in this whole process.
So SLDC is a nonprofit organization that serves as an economic development agency for the city of St. Louis. Under the authority of organizational structure of SLDC, we have like 10 or 11 different boards that are empowered by Missouri state statutes to conduct various business activities. A lot of people know the Land Reutilization Authority, which is the land bank, is the property owner of last resort when properties are sold for non-payment of property taxes. One of our boards is the Land Clearance for Redevelopment Authority. Its specific purpose is charged with removal of blight and assisting vacant and underutilized properties, get them back on the tax rolls, get the properties occupied, remove the barriers to development that exist because of the challenges, such as cost, which is why tax abatement is frequently utilized to help plug that gap as people figure out what the present value of their development is. And so our purpose at LCRA is to get these properties back into the hands of someone who's going to start paying property taxes someday, and to take the blighted, vacant, derelict properties and turn them into something that's useful again. So that's specifically what we are charged with.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No more questions?
I have just one. If we were to close on one or both properties, how soon would the weatherproofing and stabilization efforts begin?
As soon as possible. I think Marshall could go a little bit quicker. The Cleveland High School, a little bit more challenging, a lot bigger building and more components to it, but we would bring someone on board to help us figure out what that looks like almost immediately. In fact, we're already talking with the firm related to the Cleveland High School on helping us as part of the follow-up to the assessment report that we received.
Yeah, realistically, I mean, we would just need to get a firm to help us develop the bid specs in order to put that out to bid, because everything that we would need to do for the construction, for the weatherproofing and the exterior, stabilization that we would need to do would have to be publicly bid. And so we would just need the bid specs to be assisted to be put together from those condition assessments that we have, put it out to bid. So we would need a couple of months in order to put together the bid specs and publicly solicit that, and then get it under contract, and then we would want to start. So as soon as we close, we would need as soon as we would have a contract, that's when we would start immediately developing those bid specs, and then, getting ready to solicit that work. Even if we have permission to be on the property, that's when we would start developing the bid specs and getting ready to solicit the work. And then as soon as we close, we would be ready to start the construction.
No more questions? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your consideration. Appreciate it.
Next, we have Volkert and Company easement request, Gateway STEM, Clyde C. Miller. No, I don't think I did.
Good afternoon.
Did I?
Want to thank the committee for allowing me to speak this afternoon. My name is Roger Ostoff. I am with Volkert, and Volkert is working with Ameren, Missouri. And there may have been a packet of information that was provided to the board or the committee regarding the Ameren, Missouri easement expansion. Ms. Henry, was that provided by chance? Okay.
It's in diligent.
I appreciate it. So I'm here to answer any questions that may arise. Basically, what Ameren is seeking is an expansion of an existing easement. This is an electric transmission easement. that currently is approximately 15 feet wide over property owned by the Board of Education. This particular property is located at 5101 McRae Avenue. It's the Gateway STEM High School property. And Ameren is seeking to widen their existing easement because they are looking to protect the corridor from trees, vegetation, buildings that may arise. We know that there aren't any buildings in this particular corridor currently on the property that's owned by the Board of Education. And there is a price, a value that Ameren would like to pay. So with that, I'll open it up to the floor for questions, comments, concerns.
Any questions?
Make sure that I'm following along here. So number 8 on our agenda.
Correct.
There's a support letter that seems to be related to Interco Plaza, which I think is a different topic. And then there's the potential easement, which I see, I guess I see a map. And there is.
Do you have that? Is there a map that perhaps looks like this? An aerial?
No.
Okay.
At least not that I've found. Let me, oh, there is a screenshot. Oh, I'm sorry, there is a third attachment.
Okay.
And that's that.
Okay.
The aerial.
And then is there another document that looks like this, perhaps?
I'm not looking at the same thing. Yeah, I've got a different exhibit, I think, or do I?
Oh, that's a screenshot. Got the sc-
Okay.
Okay.
So this information, I do have it in an emailed version that I had provided to the board, so I can resend that, so everyone has it at their fingertips if you would like.
There we go, right there.
I just have one quick question. You're not going to construct on it, you only want it for,
Protect it, just to protect the utility.
right? And right now, in the area, is it just overhead lines that are there?
That's correct.
We don't have any poles or anything, right?
No, the poles are just off your property line,
Okay, thank you.
and they're steel lattice, if anyone wants to know the type.
I'm still, I'll admit my confusion here, just in front of, publicly in front of the world, but, so there's a letter from Fred M. Luth and Sons, and it concerns
Oh,
a
that
water
is, yes, and that's
transmission.
a separate request for the
Okay.
committee. So I'm here to talk about the Ameren Missouri Electric Line easement expansion, and the Luth team, they are here to speak of a potential water line request for the, at the corner of Grand Boulevard and Bell.
Okay, yeah, I was
And
getting
that's on the
confused because you were
Clyde C.
talking about
Miller.
Ameren, and then I saw water transmission line, and I thought.
Yes, and I'm here for.
Water and electricity is.
Right, and sorry for the confusion. I'm here to represent Ameren, Missouri, and I'm also here to facilitate the conversation. And the Luth team is here to answer any questions regarding that water easement request.
This, on this diagram, that triangle, so to speak.
That is the water line easement.
Okay. You're talking about something else right now.
Yes, and I apologize. I
It's
thought.
okay, we'll get it together.
Okay, and I had provided an emailed version of the Ameren, Missouri request to Mr. Watson and others. I'm not certain who received that.
Is this a no-cost request expansion, or is this a cost to the district?
No cost to you.
Okay.
No, you just get money.
How much? I'd love to
it-
hear that. No, you don't have to answer that.
Oh, no,
Right.
it's in the packet. It's roughly $5,000.
A year?
No, one-time payment. It's a permanent easement expansion.
And how large was it again?
The current easement is 15 feet. The addition is roughly 20 feet in addition.
It doesn't interfere with our bus routes or anything.
No, sir. this is really right on the edge of the railroad right-of-way, and it's really, it's just brush. It's just right in the middle.
Okay.
And just for clarity, one more time, the reasoning behind wanting the additional easement?
It's to expand the existing easement, and that's to keep vegetation back from the high voltage transmission lines. As you are well aware, all of the high intensity storms, they are trying to keep that vegetation as far back as possible.
Understood, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions? Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. And then I can help facilitate kind of the ball rolling. I had also reached out to the committee to ask about the potential of a water line easement request, and that's in the triangular piece on the Clyde C. Miller property. And we have John Patterson and Dave Bodner with Luth. They can answer some of the questions. I'm here to bridge you all with them because I was working on the Ameren, Missouri easement, so that's why I'm here as well. I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you. I'm John Patterson with Fred Luth. We're longtime water and sewer contractor here in St. Louis. I've got Dave Bodner here with me. We're currently working near Grand and Bell. We're relocating a critical infrastructure line for the city of St. Louis to facilitate the VA expansion project. Currently, this water line runs down Bell, and it's being rerouted down Grand and down Finney. Unfortunately, due to aged infrastructure issues, we ran into a design issue where we were going to tie in the water line in the intersection of Grand and Bell, and we're looking for alternative ways to tie that in. The original plan was a shutdown of that system, and like I said, due to some age infrastructure issues, that's no longer a feasible option, and we're looking at alternatives. One of the alternatives that we have is cutting across a small corner of the school district property to allow the water line to tie into Grand and Bell. Before we move forward with that, we're seeking a discussion and approval from the board before we continue to spend efforts to go down a path that's not feasible. So,
would it cause any disruption to activity at the school?
Don't anticipate any disruption. We've been working there for quite some time, and I'm not aware of any issues that have occurred with the school to date. We've worked all summer coming parallel to the school down Grand, and like I said, I'm not aware of any issues, and if anything comes up, we're happy to address them, right away.
I'm assuming with that triangle, that's where you would have to cut?
Yeah, yes, we're essentially looking at potentially cutting the corner and coming across. I don't really have a square footage of how many feet that is, but it's a very, very small impacted area of the school. There's a flagpole there. It's the flagpole. We don't anticipate having to do anything with the flagpole. We'll be on the outside of that. Some pipe ballards, some green space, concrete work will have to be redone following construction.
So you're not going to take that whole corner out. You're going to leave the city sidewalk and all that. You won't be taking all that out. You just that triangle aspect.
No, the city sidewalk will come out too.
Oh, it's coming out too. Okay, okay.
Put the water line. The other attached drawing, more of an engineered scale drawing, shows the water line going under the city sidewalk and cutting across the school district property.
Okay.
We'll have to restore all of those areas in our restoration plan.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I have two questions.
Go ahead.
What are your other options? You said you had other options besides cutting across our school property.
The other option is going on public right-of-way, going up the street and turning in the street. It's not the preferred approach due to sharp bends and a large water line. It can be done, but it's not the preferred method.
And my second question is, what is the liability if we understand that it's aging infrastructure, right? That's why you're requesting to, cut into the school property water line. What if when you cut into that water line, let's say a month or two later, our infrastructure fails, meaning we know there's clay pipes and whatever? What liability would you then have as back to SLPS, meaning would you be responsible for those costs of fixing based on just the area you did, or if you're cutting into our pipes would then cause damage or potential damage to our infrastructure? I'm hoping I'm asking this right.
We're not intending to cut into any of the school district's pipes. This is a large transmission line that feeds the entire city that we're tapping into. We're not tapping into or cutting any of the school district's sewer, water line, et cetera. The building, it has the water line fed from the opposite street, so there's no service interruptions to the building anticipated.
Thank you. What was the time frame again for wanting to start this project?
Well, it's underway right now, and we currently have on the drawing, we have the 48-inch pipe is laid, near that intersection when this unfortunate design issue occurred. As far as the time frame to come across there, don't really have a hard timeline. The VA hospital is very anxious to get this done. Some of these components are very long lead items, and before we can procure those components, we need to nail down the direction that we're going. Dave may have a better timeline, but it's in the relatively
near future.
Dave Bodnar, I'm the project manager with this one for Fred Muth and Sons. The components that we're talking about, like the valves of this size, they take 12 weeks in order to get. It's going to be March before these parts and pieces are available. So we need to plan out each individual bin and exactly where it's going to go. None of this is off-the-shelf items. Some of these are potentially going to be custom-made pieces for this operation. So we're talking about something that isn't going to be able to start until March when some of these parts can be procured. The easement that's also being requested, this is a easement that would be written out to the City of St. Louis Water Division. This is actually their resource that would be going in there. So it would be from one city entity to another city entity. But the Water Division had asked for, if we go outside of right-of-way, that there be a easement written up, which we would have that easement written and the legally filed with the documentation.
I guess this would be a question for both the water transmission line and the Ameren easement. It's sort of re-asking a similar question, but if there's a deadline for us for providing a letter giving permission for the easement, and then also if you could provide a sample letter or for both entities.
It's actually a complex title document that these easements are. So it's essentially a contract that would be filed with the land records.
So what would be the action for the board to take? Or
The board would have to approve the granting of both easements or separate easements, however you'd want to do it.
Okay, and I guess then coming back to the deadline for approving the granting of the easements.
For the sake of the water transmission main, like, we really need to know whether or not there's a possibility of this. Should we go down this design path to follow this route? Or is this something that the board's not willing to negotiate or grant? And if that's the case, we need to pursue a different design?
Go ahead.
What is the potential payment to SLPS from this?
Yeah, that has not been determined at this point. As mentioned, we're doing kind of a fact-finding mission at this point, but there will be a price per linear foot typically on a water line easement, and that has to be determined on what the length is. As far as, and while I have the floor, as far as timing on the Ameren easement, tomorrow would be great. No, just, we want to, it's just like anything else. If you let it set, it gathers dust. So as quickly as you all make the decision or the board makes the decision, I'll be here to assist.
What kind of, I know since all the construction is going over there right now, what kind of interference, for lack of a better word, will it have with our students getting back and forth to school?
So, currently, I have not seen any or have not heard any issues from the school. We have weekly progress meetings with the VA, and we've not heard any concerns from the school on student impact. Occasionally we have students stop and talk to us and inquisitive what we're doing, et cetera, but as far as impacts, I'm not aware of any.
All right, thank you. Any more questions? No? Go ahead. Oh, none. Thank you, gentlemen.
One follow-up question. What does the board anticipate a timeline to make a decision on something like this?
Well, we have to take to closed session,
Okay.
and then we'll decide when we'll get it to the board, which hopefully might be fortunate, might be tomorrow.
Okay.
And then Ms. Henry will have all the information that can get back with you guys. Unless I'm talking out of turn, Ms. Henry.
I think we've missed the deadline for tomorrow already, so it would be at the next session after tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Roger, yeah.
No, thank you.
We have TIF and tax abatement housing credit application from Nancy Keene Apartment Home. They're here.
So this is just a FYI to the
Okay.
committee. They're seeking low-income housing tax credits, and they have to notify us, so that's what's included in the attachment on diligent. They're just giving us notification. They did not ask for a letter of support.
Okay, thank you. Other business, cell tower lease buyout. Ma'am?
Yeah,
Sir,
just,
I'm sorry.
just real quick on that. I thought that they were seeking a letter stating that the superintendent was notified of the low-income housing tax credit application, like that they just wanted a letter from the superintendent saying that she knew that they had applied.
When I talked to them, they didn't ask for anything in return, so I can follow up and make sure they don't need verification or notification.
Next, other business, cell tower lease buyout.
Sure. So we heard from Mr. Joe Fiore a couple months ago about the two offers to buy out the cell tower leases at Nance and Long. Legal needed some more time to review those. So we're back today to make a decision about the options regarding the two buyouts.
We got to do that in closed session.
I don't think so. No, we're, think we're going to look into the successor clause and whether there was one.
My apologies, I've not done that then. Let me get back to the committee within this week.
Is that I think the last time we talked about it, that was sort of the only open question, was whether there was a successor clause, especially if we're doing a longer term agreement with them.
Any more questions on that? No? Future business, tornado victim shelter,
It's just FYI as to what's coming.
Highland Bus Depot also?
It's all coming.
Okay, okay. Adjournment, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call, please. I'm sorry.
Ms. Henry,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Watson,
Yes.
Dr. Berry,
Yes.
Mr. Marston,
Yes.
Mr. Hikes.
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned to closed session at 5